Sometimes the world looks like you ain't ever seen it before. Stuck behind never-ending windows, all you need is a door. Searching for something to put a smile back on your face. Just remember, in unusual times, it can come from an unusual place. You need a partner for the ride, 'cause everybody needs a Clyde. So set your worries to the side. Just ask, say the word and I'll be there. Just ask, you know the greatest things in life all come in a pair. They say hindsight's 20/20, but that ain't far enough behind me. So if you want the sweetest honey, I think hindsight's 1990. There's no need to pretend I got a hand I can lend, 'cause when you really need a friend, just ask. Shit 90 shows taught me.
Shit 90 Shows Taught Me was not filmed before a live studio audience.
Are you ready for another documentary? So are we. Welcome back to Shit 90 Shows Taught Me. I'm Jess Sterling here with my co-host, Sara Fergenson. Sara, how are you?
I am good. I am actually excited to talk about Docuventary II this time around. I feel as though you and I were very grumpy about Docuventary 1, and I don't exactly remember why or how. I tried to listen to our podcast from last year or last time, and it just seemed like we were being cranky old bitches, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we were just in a mood, but
yeah, because I like this one a lot more. And I don't really, I don't know. I don't know exactly why. Obviously, there are things I have problems with, which we'll get into. But yeah, I think I like this one a bit more. I don't know if the video quality was better this time around or what.
Yeah, I mean, once we welcome in our special guest, we can talk it out why we didn't like Documentary 1, because I think I have some points in my head as to why we were so cranky. But we have a special guest, Emily. Emily, how are you?
I'm doing great. I was able to wake up this morning and take out my futuristic name tag that says associate or promoted and tenured associate librarian Emily. And I gave it, a nice rub and said, I will be a librarian. I am a librarian. But when you get fully promoted, you're actually a librarian. Right now, I'm an assistant librarian. So I've got a ways to go.
Room to grow. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's essentially vision boarding, right? Like, is this, I mean, it's good. It's kind of like the thing, like dress for the job you want, not for the job you have type of thing.
Exactly.
It's manifesting.
Manifesting. Yes.
It makes sense to me. And I like this sort of thing. I'm not really a vision board person per se, but I like striving for something. And I think having a physical representation of what you're trying, like what you're determined to get or what you want for your future, I think makes a ton of sense. And I really love that, Elena isn't necessarily always the touchy-feely sort of like woo-woo person. But I like that she has this because it's a really important goal for her. And I love that little name tag that she made for herself. That was cute.
I love it.
It was really good. Yeah. I thought it was nice.
Well, Emily, because this is your first time on talking about Felicity, why don't you give us your thoughts on the show so far and a little bit of your history? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you're watching the show for the first time along with the podcast. Is that right?
That is right. So when this podcast started up with Felicity last year, I was looking for a new show to get into, looking for a couple new podcasts to listen to. And so I thought I'd check in, see how far along this one was. And if it was like, you're in season 3 and there was no hope, then, catch you on the next round. But you were only 14 episodes in. And I thought, I can do that. And so I binge watched and binge listened to the entire podcast in 2 weeks. Do not recommend binging Felicity that fast.
It's a lot.
It was not a great time. There were some rough periods with Felicity. It was rough, but I made it. And the weekly now is a much better format for me personally, but also I think we've really kind of ascended into a higher plane with Felicity this season. So I'm enjoying it a lot. I have to remind myself that I can't like Felicity too much. It's against my rules because she was a stalker. And so we just cannot forget the origin story. Yes. And I feel like it's so easy to forget that Felicity went to New York University or the University of New York for Ben. And so she is the ultimate antagonist.
We did get reminded. Okay, so I guess, Emily, you're saying that we should be anti-stalker. Because I think I forgot that point.
Yes, but I think the problem is because we've been doing this for like a prolonged period of time at this point, right? Like we've been on this journey for almost a year at this point that like I have a very short memory. Like and so when we get into this episode where I just have bigger fish to fry, you know what I mean? Like we have characters like Greg doing shit that I have to condemn. And because Felicity stands on the opposite side of that, of course I gotta stand with her, you know?
I find myself rooting for her by accident all the time.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. We're rooting for her by accident. Yes. And so we have like a sequel essentially to the original documentary. And this time we have Sean and Richard kind of teaming up, which Sarah, I thought this was such a smart use of Richard as a character. I felt like he fit perfectly in the role as like assistant producer or whatever his role exactly is here.
Let's be real. He's holding the boom and that's about it.
He's boom boy.
Yeah, he's a little too vocal for his position of being the boom boy. But yeah, like I really like this pairing as well. I think it's really funny. I did want to once again touch on our issues with Docuventary I. I think like first and foremost, I didn't really like Felicity that much with the person or the show at that time. And I especially was complaining a lot about the quality of the picture, which I feel as though like, I don't know, once again, if I was just being grumpy or if there's been improvements, but, and we really didn't like seeing the quality with the fake camera. Do you have that same issue this time around?
I feel like it was I feel like it wasn't as like VCR-y, like VHS tapey this time around. And it felt more like a stylistic choice this time. Whereas last time it felt more like, oops, this is trash quality. And I don't know if that's the case. Like, again, it's been a while since I watched the original documentary. But this time it felt more stylized. And I don't know also, I'm trying to remember, and maybe you'll remember, Emily, I feel like you probably have a better memory than I do. It's not hard. That I feel like we got more commentary from like Sean and Richard this time than we did the first time. And I thought that added a lot of like comedy value to the episode as they're back and forth.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot from Sean in the original documentary. I mean, he was there. We got the kind of the premise for what he was doing, but I don't remember all the editorial comments like you're saying. This time we got to see, I think having Richard there actually really helped because he had someone to kind of bounce off of. Yeah. So they were able to discuss, we were able to see Richard with all of his mistakes, with the boom, with the lighting, which, you know, was great for comedy. And then we also got to see some of the editing process, which was fun. Yeah. And, you know, I'm always game for whenever we're, you know, giving Richard a good put down.
Yes, thank you, because Richard deserves it. Yeah, 9 times, I guess. Especially, we're 2 seconds into the episode, Sarah, and Sean is like, "Oh, how do I look?" And Richard's like, "Fat," and it's like, "Go away, go away."
So bad.
Some of our other complaints included really the storyline, because the thing was that we had just gotten a Felicity and Noel breakup, and Ben had just started getting into his betting issues. And in this episode, it seemed as though things got wrapped up into a nice little bow. And we were like, why are we going to go through all this drama for it to be fixed in the next episode? Which I feel like is not a documentary issue. It is really just a storyline issue, like how things went.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this time it's a little bit more, I really enjoyed, there's something about like a snarky Ben, like a sassy Ben that I really enjoy. And I love how very much against this whole process he was as a result of like the first time. I love a callback. I love a self-reference, and like the continuity is strong. And Ben is very anti-documentary. He's like, I don't want to be filmed. Please don't film me. I especially liked Emily when he has to do community service now at like, I don't know if I apologize. I'm fostering a dog right now. And if you hear noise, that's what that is. He's working at like a restaurant or something. So he has like the hairnet and everything. And we get a visual of Richard holding the boom mic with a hairnet on. And I don't know, just that cracked me up. The finding of the retainer and the food cracked me up. Like Ben just cracked me up this episode in general.
Yeah, exasperated Ben, I think, is my favorite Ben. I was really loving all his content for the first half of this episode. We'll get into, a choice that he makes partway through, which is, quite controversial. And I think probably means that he won't be getting our point at the end. But I was really enjoying him up until that point. I love just seeing him totally out of his element, just grinding along. That retainer, that was like so disgusting. I'm sorry. That was, I was gagging just watching that whole.
It feels like the retainer storyline was in every show from like the 90s and early aughts. It's like people would just leave their retainers places.
Apparently so.
Yeah, this was, I feel like, and they're always that, there's a visual of that retainer that I don't think kids probably wear nowadays because they have those ones that like fit to their teeth. But yeah, and Ben is having a problem. We're going to talk by storyline as we have been doing the past few episodes. Ben's problem is that Felicity is now like kind of sort of dating Greg, and he hates Greg. And he was like looking forward to both Felicity and Ben finishing their community service hours and her getting out of the health center and never having to see Greg again, and on and on and on. And he's not happy because obviously he's jealous. And Sarah, I think it's really smart. As much as I hate the character of Greg, I think it makes a ton of sense that like someone like Ben would really dislike someone like Greg, because Greg has the stuff that he doesn't. He's motivated. He's really determined to be a doctor, right? Like he has this like a little bit of like a prestigious sort of vibe about him, whereas Ben is very like ambling around, not really knowing what he wants to do with his life. Yeah. I think it makes a ton of sense that they would be at odds with each other.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's like things that, especially because it is, I mean, even Javier said in this episode, like Ben comes off like a dummy, but he's really not stupid. But I think that he probably got told his whole life that he's not as smart as others. I mean, truth be told, I think actually, I was going to say he got into NYU, so he has to have had like pretty good grades. But I also know that he got in with a swimming scholarship. So I mean, but still.
And he lied on his his
a little bit of a lie. Like, I mean, what's like a fake brother or two? It's
a fake brother who died.
A little bit of a dead fake brother. It's fine. But still, like, you still have to get, it's a reputable school. I mean, it's people like Elena and Felicity got in. So, and they were valedictorians in their own right. And of course, Tracy. So he has to be smart in a way, but it's kind of like he just doesn't feel that way. And then for somebody like Greg, who is going to be a doctor, very intimidating. Felicity and Greg have seemingly more in common. Of course, they're going to have this insecurity. And also, Greg is a fucking douchebag. And I don't like Greg. I don't like his face. I barely recognized him this episode.
Yeah, he got his haircut mid-season. What is up with these characters doing this? Didn't this happen? This happened like Ben got his haircut at the end of season 1. And it's like, don't we know that haircuts are for between seasons so that you come back with a fresh look for the next season? I barely recognize this man, Emily. Where'd the curly hair go?
It's a great question. I mean, Felicity had her hair cut on screen. I think, maybe someone out there has done some kind of rhetorical analysis on what the hair cutting means at these times throughout Felicity. My husband thinks that Ben and Noel are the same person because of their haircuts. He thinks that they are look identical because of their haircuts. So there's definitely something to hair with Felicity. But I think there's another reason that Ben really hates Greg. And I think it's because Ben feels this kind of protectiveness over Felicity, and they work together. And now Felicity is working with another guy somewhere else, and they have this interest as well. So I think maybe he sees her as his kind of work wife. And now there's someone else who can have that claim. And I hate that whole thing, work wife, work husband. That's just silly. But I think there's kind of this little jealousy there too, where she's not just at Dean and DeLuca. She's also splitting her time elsewhere and making connections over there.
Yeah. Have you ever had a work husband, Emily or Jess?
I've never had anybody that I would call that. But in a previous position, I was in a very small department. There's my supervisor who was a male, and there was me, and it was just the two of us in our whole department. So, I mean, I think kind of by nature, you work kind of closely together. Unfortunately, we got along super well.
That's great.
I'm no longer there. But that was not because of, a bad relationship there.
Yeah. Jess, have you ever had a work husband?
I think I've only ever had work wives, to be honest. Anytime I've ever had a mentor or someone that I was very tight with at work, I feel like it's usually been a woman. So I don't think I've ever had a work husband, but I've had lots of work wives.
Yeah. I mean, I was flirting all the time at the Stop and Shop, but ever since then, I've only worked for small interior design companies that I had no real interest in.
Plus, I also feel like with, if you don't go into an office either, I feel like a lot of times that you're taking away that element because you're not chatting one-on-one, just about nonsense less, you know what I mean? You're not doing that as much when you work from home. So I feel like with COVID in 2020 and everything, a lot of the work marriages were just broken up.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess a ton of work relationships got broken up, which is so depressing, I'm sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about Ben's decision in this episode to look through the files and see what Greg had in his past. This is bad. This is bad, but it's shades of Felicity, shades of Felicity doing the exact same thing to Ben in season 1. And it kind of astounds me, Sarah, because I feel like very early on in the show, we were saying Noel and Felicity, they're both a little bit unhinged and therefore they either deserve each other, but also are a little bit too toxic together. Yeah. And now it's Ben has turned into Felicity as well, or Felicity has turned into Ben. I don't know. They're the same.
They probably met in the middle.
Yeah, they met in the middle. And so this is a terrible, terrible decision. And
is it though? It's so
the snooping is one problem, right? But the fact that then you're telling the person whose information that and that basically blackmailing him, basically saying, if you do anything to hurt Felicity, I will tell her,
oh no, he said, I will kill you.
Well, threatening his life, essentially. Not great on Ben's part, especially when you cannot like the guy. You cannot like Greg, which is fair because Greg's an asshole. And you could also see what he's doing is problematic, which we will definitely get into. Hiring someone who he is, wanting to date, interested in romantically, whatever. But I don't know. But Greg, I don't know that necessarily Ben understands all of that. And so I don't really know what Ben's problem is with Greg beyond he's kind of an asshole. I don't think Ben has any proof that Greg is going to assault Felicity or ruin her life or, you know what I mean? Greg isn't a serial killer. And so I feel like Ben is having a very big reaction fueled by his feelings for Felicity.
Yeah, 1,000%, right, Emily?
Yeah, well, and the way it's portrayed in the episode almost makes it seem like Sean gives him the idea where they're kind of talking about how Ben just hates Greg. And Sean's like, well, why don't you just change his GPA then? Right. And then laughter, ha, ha, ha. And it's after that Ben decides to snoop, where it's like, I mean, did Sean actually give him that idea? Isn't that, you think, something that if you have access to these files, you would have maybe thought about that already? And now he's kind of been given like permission almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I found that to be really, really intriguing. It's like, oh, if someone else thinks that I might be able to do that, well, maybe I just should do it. And and I could also see where he's rationalizing, well, I'll just look. And if there's nothing there, then there's nothing there and I'll feel better. But then there's something there.
Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you a librarian with a school?
Yeah, so I work at a state university. Yeah.
Okay. How accessible is student files to the average student?
I am so glad you asked. So
Emily's like, I've been waiting 2 seasons for this.
This was so annoying. So first of all, Ben is on probation, right? Contingent on the fact that he needs to complete his community service. So as part of his community service, that's why he's here in the admissions office or wherever he is with access to these files. So there is something that's kind of similar to HIPAA, but for college, and it's called FERPA, and it's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which basically says who is allowed to have access to what school records. And the whole idea is people like instructors, administrators can have access to student files if there is an educational need. And if there's not an educational need, then you do not get access. I, as a librarian, do not have access to student files, even though I'm a full-time employed professional staff or faculty member where I work. Ben, as a student who's working on probation, should never have been given access because he himself does not have an educational need. Now, if they need someone to file those classified files, then you would have to go through training essentially and say, I understand FERPA, and I'm going to sign that I'm going to abide by those rules and not share this information. We saw nothing like that for Ben. So I think, and I don't know how far back FERPA goes, but I imagine there was some kind of rule like that in place at the time that Felicity took place. A student,
especially because this is supposed to be like NYU.
Yeah.
This isn't like some like teeny tiny liberal arts college. Like this is like a big,
you're not hurting for workers, right? So also like you would think an office like that would have work study students. And Ben is clearly not in a work study position. This is volunteer for his community service. Yeah, so he should never have had access to those files. I don't think any student, even work study students, should have access to those files. I think maybe in a rare case, you might be able to make an argument and say there's an educational need. But at somewhere like NYU or equivalent, have a hard time believing that.
Okay, so this would never happen. Like, I mean, for once where Felicity had access, that's one thing. For twice, because she was work study at the time, I believe.
She was, yeah.
And then for twice for Ben, who's on probation, it just wouldn't happen. But
yeah,
I guess my question is, and this is something that we spoke about when Felicity did it, if you had access, would you do it? And I would say, as a professional snooper, of course I would.
I think I'd be too terrified of getting caught. Like, especially if I was already in trouble for something, to then also snoop and reveal that you have snooped to the person you snooped on. Like all of that series of events is wild. So no, I don't think I would snoop. And even if I did, if I was like very pushed to do it, I don't think I would reveal that I snooped.
I think I would in a very specific circumstance where, okay, these are print files, right? They're not digital, so there's no digital
You
footprint.
don't have to hack into anything all over.
Wear gloves. You don't have fingerprints.
Exactly. Are there cameras, right? If there are no cameras, then, maybe I just get lost in the files. But anything digital, no way. No way.
It's not worth it.
Yep. Don't want that.
Yeah. And so we find out that Greg has been arrested. I believe it was for cocaine. Is that correct? For cocaine.
Yeah.
And he went to jail as a result of this. So now, of course, Ben is aghast that he is allowed to work at the health center. Like, oh my gosh, this is a big deal.
This is so funny to me because it's just like, oh my God. He's like so high and mighty about the cocaine. And I don't know why, but it just like, it tickles me because I don't know. I don't really see Ben as somebody who is anti-drugs or whatever, but he really latched onto this cocaine thing, and he's like, I think it's an immoral impurity that this man that has access to the health center did cocaine and has a history with drugs. It's so funny to me. I don't know. Did it tickle anybody else?
Well, and we didn't even know for sure that he had done drugs. At first, when they said he was arrested for possession, I was thinking, oh, this is a trap, right? It was somehow cocaine in his car from his friend, and then it went to pot.
Yeah.
But then it did end up being, no, it was his and he was using. But yeah, at first I was thinking, oh my goodness, Ben is going to totally fall into this trap.
Yeah. I think this scene and this entire storyline plays very differently nowadays than it did 30 years ago. Yeah. Because and maybe it's just my philosophy has changed. I feel like drug use was really villainized for a really long time. And now it is definitely treated as more of it's an addiction. It's a health issue. You have an addiction to something, and he got help for it. And he did end up in jail, but he got back on a good path, and he no longer has this issue. And so I think as a society, at least those who are more empathetic are willing to be he's paid his dues. He's moved on. He shouldn't be penalized for his entire life because of a mistake he made when he was really young and had an addiction. And so I think this scene just plays so differently now, because instead of it looking reflecting poorly on Greg, it reflects way more poorly on Ben, because Ben is so judgmental of it. And I agree with you, Sarah. I think it's funny because Ben is definitely the guy who's smoked pot with the guys under the bleachers in high school. Yeah. But I think he views cocaine as and rightly so, cocaine is a harder drug. And I think he also views Felicity as this virginal character. I just think he sees her as so pure that he doesn't want her to be tainted by the awful drug using Greg. I just think that's why he has such an issue with it. And that maybe we can kind of use this as a dovetail into Greg's storyline. But Greg was certainly not doing himself any favors this episode. I was astounded. And Emily, I cannot wait to get your thoughts on this, because I know you and I are on the same page when it comes to these inappropriate relationships on these 90s television shows. I was astounded that not that Greg hired Felicity because he has a crush on her and, whatever, but that he was fully admitting it and being yeah, obviously that's why I hired you and not the guy who has 2 years more experience than you.
Every chance he had to be no, you deserved this, he did not take that road. Every single time. And Felicity says immediately, I don't want to be showed favoritism. And he says, oh, yeah. But then, the thing that really got to me was, oh, let me ask her on a date before I tell her if she got the job or not. And I mean, either way you mix the dating with the you got the job, it's bad. Yeah. And then he has the gall to say, oh, well, your yes to the date wasn't contingent on you getting this job. Well, how does she know that? How does anybody know that? Right. So she got the job, they're dating. And then when she asks him, did you go to bat for me because you like me? And he so flippantly says, yeah. At first I was like, wait. Maybe he didn't understand what she was asking. Maybe he thought she meant like, just, you like me, as a person, as a worker. But no, he actually responded, yes, I like you. And so that's why I went back. Oh, he does not understand Felicity. He does not understand women. He does not understand who should be getting jobs and why. I was just like furious the whole time.
Exactly. And not only that, Sarah, but the fact that, again, Felicity was a great volunteer and she does have prior experience. Like, all of those things can be true. However, to not hire the man that Greg admits would be at least as good as Felicity at this job, who's worked there for 2 years. And I'm not saying Felicity did anything wrong. We were very pro sit-in. Okay. I just want to say that. But to believe that a health center would then turn around and hire the woman who staged a sit-in is also unbelievable. Like, what did Greg have to say to get her this job after that?
I mean, yeah, he said that he really vouched for her. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous, right? I mean, I think that if he did and once again, how does he get to make the decision at the end of the day or vouch? Because he's like, how is this guy who I think is like, I don't know if he's an undergrad, he's not in med school yet. Maybe there's some time in between that he's taking between med school and undergrad, but how is he making this decision anyway? But so the whole thing is really ridiculous. I feel like there should have been a proper interview process. And then if they did their due diligence and for whatever reason felt that Felicity was a stronger candidate, then like, fine, that's totally cool. But I learned from the recent Ren Fair documentary that nepotism is bad. And I feel as though that nepotism is very bad. And this was really, and I do like that Felicity kind of fought for the guy. I mean, the guy, I don't know his name, but the guy with the ugly
Doug?
sweater, I don't know, ugly sweater,
Jim.
white hair,
the other guy was Doug. Yes,
bleached hair. He was like very, very pissy about it, especially.
Understandably, I would be pissy about it too. And I appreciated that when Felicity puts him in the super awkward position of like bringing him into the room and being like, this is the guy that should have got the job. He's like, I don't want to be involved in this. Like, credit to him, because I would be pissed off and like, reporting that to somebody that I worked here for 2 years, have plenty of experience, and now I'm out of a placement because Greg has a crush on Felicity. Like, it's just not right. And then furthermore, I was really, really upset that when Felicity goes to her therapist counselor, Tony, and says, this is an injustice. Like, I can't believe this. Tony's advice was horrible. She was like, oh, why are you so pissy? Like, you deserve this opportunity. You should take this opportunity. And like, sure, there are things you could point out of like, okay, she's a woman and then she's like getting an opportunity over a man. So like, yay. But also like, the right person for the job should get the job. And Felicity is getting the job as a result of her boss having a crush on her. Like, that's not okay, Tony. Like, she's chastising Felicity for being upset about this. And I just feel like, I don't know a therapist in the world that would do that. Like, what are we doing here?
What's your taste on Tony Pavone?
I really liked her initially, but she's been giving some questionable advice in the recent episodes. And this was definitely one of them. And like, I can understand that Felicity alone doesn't know how she stacked up against the other candidates without Greg telling her that, right? But there may have been other factors at play that gave her the edge over him as well. And she doesn't know that. But Dr. Pavone's advice to be like, yeah, just take it and and don't worry about it and let it slide off your back. Like, I think it's okay to question when we see something that we don't feel is fair and to ask those questions. And as soon as we're not allowed to do that, I'm checking out of there. Yeah, but I really liked her initially. I do want to complain about Greg's position for just a second, because I have the receipts. So I looked on LinkedIn for equivalent job titles for what he has. All right.
Amazing.
So I found two. One was director of the Student Health Center, which that's like what he does, right? He's the director of the Student Health Center.
Yeah.
So for this one, master's degree or doctorate, plus a minimum of 5 years of experience of professional leadership and management. Another one, associate director for the Student Health Center, master's degree, must be licensed as a registered nurse or nurse practitioner, and 5 years of experience in medical practice.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
I
he
don't
didn't
know
have
what's
any of
going
that.
on here.
Maybe nepotism is what got him the job originally.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Yeah. It seems as though somebody making the hiring decisions here is.
I just can't believe there's like nobody else that Felicity can go to with these questions above him. Like he reports to the board of trustees, right? There's like nobody.
There was that one guy. Was he on the board? That guy that during the sit-in and everything?
Yeah. And
Dean?
like,
okay.
Yeah. So I don't know, but like Felicity can surely, like, from the multiple past episodes where she's had complaints about how things are going, there's got to be somebody above him that she can go to.
And I really, to give credit to Felicity, I like how upset she was that like that was the reason she was hired. Like, it was nice to see that she was like, no, I quit. Like, I'm not going to take this job. Like, give it to the guy who deserves it. I'm out of here. And then at the end of the episode, she tries to she wants to come back on like a work study sort of volunteer basis. And she tries to manipulate this new volunteer by being like, oh, are you okay with blood? There's a lot of blood, like blah, blah, blah. And then she can't even do it. She can't even get through the whole thing. She's like, no, I really want, you got the last volunteer spot and I really want it. And somehow this guy was under the impression that he was going to be paid. And it's like, how is this happening? This is the most disorganized health center ever. Like, how is this guy coming on board thinking he's getting paid when he's just a volunteer? What is going on here?
Nothing good. Absolutely nothing good.
Yeah.
I think he was smart to get out as quick as he did.
Yes, no one should be working for Doug. Excuse me, his name was Doug. No one should be working for Greg. Greg sucks, very obviously. So yeah, I don't know where we're gonna land with Felicity and Greg, but I really can't stand Greg. Like, I already didn't really like him. I felt like he was like argumentative for just like the sake of being argumentative. I felt like he was very much on his high horse when he has no reason to be. And now he's doing shit like this. And it's just like, get the hell out of here, man. Like, you're the worst. Like, Felicity should just get away from all of these men because they're all trash.
What has the show shown us that's good about Greg? Why are we supposed to be on board with him? Like, I can't think of a single thing that makes him likable.
I think it's like the only thing is if you, on paper, he's the director of like health services for a college campus trying to help people, right? Like, if you look at that solely on paper, I suppose there's something there. But no, like, he full on sucks. Like, I don't want him. I mean, well, let's just get back to the Noel Ben triangle. Like, that was preferable to this freaking schmuck. Like, definitely. I can't stand this guy. So he's terrible. Let's talk about, to get into something a little bit more fun, let's talk about Elena and Tracy, who we see through the eyes of the documentary, if you will. I was so sad, Sarah, when Tracy's talking about this little bunny rabbit he like carries around as like good luck and everything, and he keeps it in his backpack. And this gets Elena to open up about this little like Dr. Elena Tyler name tag that she carries around. And she says like, she says her little mantra or whatever. And Tracy admits that he was lying. And I was like, that is horrible. That is horrible.
Is it though? I just feel like he knows that Elena is not going to open up, especially in front of a camera. I mean, really, it's like impressive that she even opens up to Tracy at all, if that. I mean, like, it was so manipulative, of course, but I mean, once again, like, I am just like very pro Tracy. I'm very pro Tracy and Elena together. And I thought that it was like a very cute moment or funny moment that he kind of like tricked her into opening up, which honestly, for me, it's like, if anybody can get Elena to loosen up / open up, then I'm like all for it.
Tracy just wants to make good TV and he knows how to do that.
You think so? Like, I just like really think that he's like, yeah, like I know how to get like to like ruffle Elena's feathers a little bit. I know how to. open it up.
I don't think he knew the name tag thing though. Like I thought he was saying the bunny thing as like a joke. And then he's like, oh shit, like, I'm sorry. I didn't know that like you actually did something similar to what I was saying. And then he feels kind of bad because she's like really pissed off about it. But the moment I really liked the most was when it's just Tracy alone with the cameras. And he's saying like, you know, I never really cared about like the balance of pre-med and having a social life until I met Elena. And I love Sean asked the question, like, why do you think she's competitive? And he says, she's the one person who tries to prove herself to everyone. But in my mind, she's the one person who doesn't have to. Like, I just love that. I love that Tracy sees her for who she is and like accepts her, doesn't try to change her. Like, but like, realizing she's so competitive and not trying to be like you shouldn't be, or you're taking it too seriously, but instead saying, here's how we can have fun with it, you know, like making more fun moments out of those situations. Like he leans in, right? He's just as competitive as she is, and he likes to poke at her in that way. But it's more fun. It's lighthearted. And I think that's exactly what Elena needs. So I loved this like one scene with Tracy because it just showed Emily how true he knows who Elena is.
I had the heart eyes emoji on my face when I was watching this. And I just love how, like you were saying, he will poke at her knowing how competitive she is. You know, when she says she knew she wanted to be a doctor since she was 6. And then they asked Tracy, when did you know you wanted to be a doctor? And he said 5. And the look on her face, because he knew before. He's definitely lying about that, right? I mean, I just kind of feel like he knows it's going to rattle her. So that's why he says it. That's why he brings up the bunny thing. And he knows that, you know, maybe she'll open up. But then he immediately says, you know, I was lying, right? Because he likes to poke her. He likes to, you know, kind of get her rattled. So I really enjoyed that too. I'm really a big fan of Tracy so far.
I think you just couldn't go wrong with this casting choice also. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I really feel like Donald Faison, like he brings joy and life to any role he's in. And so getting him like to be the equalizer, you know, the balancer of Elena and her like hyper competitiveness just feels very perfect. And this is, Sarah, this is the kind of ship that I always am on board with, where it's like a little bit competitive, a little bit like poking and needling, like a little bit enemies, but not really, and not serious enemies, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why I love them so much. And I really can't wait to see more. We got like little bits of them here in this episode, but I'm really excited. I hope we get more Elena focused content in the future.
Yeah, me too. I would really love that. I mean, it's a big ensemble cast, so it's kind of hard in a 45-minute show to find time for everybody, but I hope that we do get more Tracy Elena content.
Mm-hmm. Okay, who do we want to jump to next? We have a Tiny Julie segment, we have Noel losing the blue books, and we have Javier and his just impressive toupee.
I mean, probably I kind of want to talk about the blue books, because this was like a little funny because he did lose the blue books, and which was on him. For the first time I watched it, I thought that the whole entire time I thought the whole time Richard and Sean had it, which I think Noel assumed at the end, but in reality, Noel did lose them. And some girl turned them into the security office where Ben is also volunteering. And in addition to the admissions office, in addition
he
to
stacked up all like his community service. Yeah, he picked like 6 different things to do to push through and get all his hours done.
Wild. So Noel really did lose them, and he's like freaking out. And I just think it's, I don't know, he's being very irresponsible. Maybe he needs to not be a TA. Maybe
I wonder if Emily has more insight into this, because I have personally found Noel's story as a TA to be absolutely insane. Like, he's the professor at this point. Like, where is the professor? What are they? Like, why is he the one grading everything? He shouldn't have custody of the blue books, you know?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about this in the Discord with some folks who work at different universities, and it does seem like there is a whole wide range of what TAs can do. In my experience, a TA is not an undergraduate. It's usually a graduate student teaching undergraduate courses, which Noel is also an undergraduate. Also, in my experience, TAs will do grading, but they do not teach the class. The professor teaches the class, but then the TA will often be the grader, because often you have these huge classes with 100, 200 students, and, you know, a professor doesn't have time to grade everything for that. And that's where the TA comes in. But it seems like he's just the professor. Right? I mean, where is the professor? What is the professor doing? Is the professor developing the lessons that Noel's teaching? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure Noel is doing his own lesson planning and teaching and grading. So I don't know where the professor of this course is. So yeah, I have been baffled. To me, it's not great to have an undergraduate who's just 1 or 2 years more advanced in a program teaching, you know, just 1 or 2 courses behind. So I try not to think too hard about it, because then my brain kind of explodes.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We really can't because it's just totally ridiculous. Noel's storyline throughout this episode was mainly just like freaking out about losing the midterm exams and getting questioned occasionally. But for somebody in Documentary who really did play such a big role the first time around, he was really like kind of like a non-entity this time around. He did get like, Ben did come to him about the Greg situation, and I liked Noel's answer, like, look, Felicity's an adult, she can make decisions for herself, which I thought was really good. But what did he did get like a little like upset about the cocaine again, right? Like he did get like a little huffy about that, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, he says like, he's like, oh, that guy, are you sure? He works in the health center.
Oh yeah.
And
he was like, he was egging Ben on about how like having a history with a drug issue and being the director of the health center was immoral, of course. How can I forget?
Yeah. And so like the conclusion of the Noel thing is like, well, Ben finds the blue books, and like Sean and he tells Sean and Ray, he's like, oh, I found this manila envelope. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect ending to our story. Like, great, we're going to use this. And so he hands them back to Noel, and all is well. Because Noel would have gotten in like massive trouble. Like those were like finals or something that he lost.
Well, and Sean and Richard think that this is going to give them the tears that they are so desperately in need of for their documentary. But of course, that's not the reaction Noel has. I think Richard has like potentially the line of the episode when he hands the blue books back to Noel and says, we're not just documentarians, we're your guardian angels. And that just set Noel off because he thought that they took them. And at no point did they say, no, we didn't.
Because that's the thing Richard would do, you know? Ridiculous. Okay, so we've discussed Noel and his blue books and his irresponsibility. Let's talk a little bit about Julie. She was kind of mostly invisible. I feel like, honestly, the most mentions of Julie was like, by Ben and Sean, like, oh, when are you going to tell her you love her? Blah. And
I hope it's like, soon.
Part of me is like, I want it to happen just so that we could get off of this, like, every single episode bringing it up. But also part of me is like, Julie needs to be single for a little bit. Like, she's been through a lot, and I don't think she needs to be hopping into a new relationship as much as I love Sean, and I do. I just think now's not the right time. And I feel like Ben needs to respect that, you know?
And not to mention that the whole approach that Ben keeps mentioning, which is just tell her you love her, is not the kind of approach that Julie is going to respond well to.
It's true.
You know, she needs to, you know, like, hey, you want to go out sometime? You want to catch dinner? Maybe it's a date, maybe it's not. And like, do the slow play and then work your way there. This, you know, just declaration of love to Julie when she lives with them, right? So like, you don't want to mess that up by doing anything super big like that.
Yeah, it's to go from we're friends to I love you is like far too much. Like you need to take it a little slower, especially when she lives with you. That's like a
Yeah.
guaranteed way to make her uncomfortable and have her
Yep.
want to move out.
Definitely.
So, yeah, we'll see what happens. We barely get any Julie content. Like she gets like one small interview, but not a ton of Julie this episode. I feel like, I mean, obviously the show is called Felicity, so we're going to be following Felicity most of the time, but I would like to see a little bit, I don't know, I would have liked to see Julie in like therapy and stuff for like everything she's going through, but I just don't see that happening. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, no, I think that she will go there. I think that I think that it's pretty relatable actually to know that you want to go to therapy, that you have to go to therapy, you need to find somebody, and then kind of just taking your time to do it. Like I can totally relate to that as well, being like, I'm going to go to therapy. And like you announce it out to the world, and then you're like, okay, I need to find a therapist. And then you like Google therapists, and then like you kind of like scare yourself off of it. And then you go back a week later and then you make like one call, but they're not taking new patients. So then like you wait a week later and then you make two more calls. Like I totally feel like that is probably what the game that Julie is playing with herself. And that's why, I don't know, it's like so hard, especially because like, who can you take your insurance? Like who's taking new patients? Who is somebody that like you trust? Like you essentially pick people based off of like, I don't know, do they look nice in the picture in a way? Because like the same thing with like new doctors, like it's like how do you even choose? Like there's a list of, because I had to go when I moved, I had to find all new doctors except for my therapist. Thank goodness for that. So then it's like the first step, go to my insurance website, see who is under my insurance. Then it is who is taking new patients, because half of them don't. Then it's like, okay, here's a list of random names. I can like, Google them and see if they have good stars. But like, it's really like if all of them have like 4.7 stars and they all like, you don't know anybody to give you recommendations, then essentially you're just picking who looks nice in the picture.
Yeah.
That's it.
Everything you're saying is so relatable. It's so much emotional labor to go through all of that. And then for it to still be a risk, even if you do all of that, to meet with someone and then to see, do I think this person is going to be right for me? And if it's a no, how demoralizing is that? And having to essentially start over.
Do the
because
whole
then it's
thing
like
over again.
Yep. Because then it's like, well, do I pick someone in the same practice? But then is that awkward? Right.
Yeah.
Because I've switched to someone in the same office, or do I really start from scratch again and go through all this again?
Yeah. Not to mention the first appointment is typically more expensive, the intake appointment. So to spend more money to do it all over again is also demoralizing.
I did appreciate that we had Felicity saying to Julie, we have the health center, like the student health center, like there are doctors, there are people you could talk to, because I think that's a thing where that should be made apparent to everyone in college, that like there are resources here that can help you. And like, gosh, you have to imagine it's not common, but like not uncommon that this is an issue that like people would need to talk about sexual assault and those sorts of things. And so I hope that because we've gotten to see Felicity in like therapy or counseling and like, a teeny tiny smidgen of Ben in it. Not that I want Julie to go to Tony. I feel like she should go to someone who like specializes in the stuff she needs to talk about. But I hope we get to see her journey with it beyond the like, I don't want to call it an epiphany, but like the moment she had in last episode where she, was on the news and everything like that, like saying this is why we need plan B and all of that. I do want to see, I want them to really fill out and focus on some of the side characters in ways that I feel like we are 90% of the time solely focused on Felicity and the two men in her life. I also want to see just like Elena and Julie have a little bit more to do this season. So we'll see what happens. Not a ton of Julie this episode, but someone who got a ton of airtime as did his toupee, Javier. This toupee is so bad. I love it. Javier he always brings the funny. And I can appreciate that about him. I think also we've had like multiple episodes now, and it always breaks my heart a little bit when we see it happening, where he's talked about getting lipo and all of that. And it breaks my heart to like, again, like, do whatever you want. It's your body, like your choice. Like, get plastic surgery, do whatever you want to like make yourself feel better. But I always feel bad when it's obviously like a self-esteem issue for him. And like that, obviously the toupee goes along with that. And so I think he said this episode to Felicity, like, oh no, I'm not getting liposuction anymore. And I was like, oh, I love this for you, Javier. You're so sweet and adorable. I love you.
I thought the toupee for Javier was perfect for him, for how he looks. Perfect. I love the journey that we're on with Javier and his body image throughout the episode. Javier, I think, is really one of the main kind of, I'm not sure we see him outside of the documentary. I think it's all within the confines of the documentary.
I think so. Right. Yes.
And he, throughout the episode has little interviews. He's giving his opinions on everyone, but he's also, bringing up his body image a lot with the toupee, with how many pounds does the camera add?
Yeah, he thinks it adds 50.
Yikes.
And Sean is like, no, it's only like 10. And he's like, okay, I'll do it.
I'll do it if it's only 10. Yes. I was dying with that. Javier had me rolling this whole episode.
Yeah. And Sara, I was scared for a second when Felicity got that job at the health center and she's like, oh, I don't know if I have time like to do both. I was like, we need her at Dean and DeLuca. Like, I love her and Javier together. We can't have that split up.
I thought she said that she couldn't afford to give up both jobs.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood what she said. Oh, thank God. Yeah. Okay. I mean, now that she's not working at the...
And Ben was very relieved to hear that.
Yeah, of course.
He's not losing his work wife.
Exactly. He needs his work wife. Yes.
I mean, of course, I love Javier's... like his interactions with both Felicity and Ben. I love watching, why am I forgetting her name right now? Felicity's
Carrie Russell.
Thank you. I love watching her break because every single scene, Carrie Russell breaks when she's interacting with Javier. It's great. I love it. So Javier's toupee was a lot. I honestly think that he looks better without the toupee. Maybe the toupee was just like a little too heavy. I'm not quite sure.
I think it makes sense for him as a character, but also I am very pro, like, if you're balding, if you're going bald, like, lean in, I think that's more my philosophy. But again, I respect what everyone wants to do with their own hair.
You're
it's their choice.
When Will has a brilliant head of really,
he does, but if he was balding, I think it's a little bit like okay, so It's Always Sunny, how Danny DeVito has like the hair all around the side but nothing on the top, and like the more you grow that out, the more obvious it is that you're balding, whereas if you shave your head, it's more like, this was my choice. I don't know. But Sara, I do have to ask you, because Javier mentions it this episode and it cracked me up. Like, one of his reasons for loving Felicity, oh, she's the sweetest, she's such an optimist, she's such romantic. Oh, and she's an autumn and I'm an autumn.
Yes.
I love it so much.
Yeah. So if you frequent TikTok, I feel like getting something in your For You page about what season you are. Obviously, this has been around for many, many years. They're talking about this in the 90s. And I am very interested in what my season is. And if you're not familiar, everybody is a season. And those are the colors associated with the season are your best colors to wear. So for example, winter, if you're a winter, you get to wear like really like beautiful jewel toned colors. Those look best for you. If you're a fall, more of those like autumny, like, orange, like rich, like rusty oranges and like deep, like olivey colors, or really like mustard, like those types of colors. Summer is like like bright colors, but also so is spring. Spring is bright colors, but like you think about it, like spring colors are like florals. So like more like flower colors, and basically like winter and spring are cool tones and fall and summer are warm tones. So that's kind of like the recap. Jess, I am pretty confident I know what season you are.
I'm currently taking an online quiz and I'm almost done to see if I could tell what season I am.
I'm pretty confident that you're a winter.
Okay.
Actually. But and Emily, do you have any like thoughts? Because you and I have similar coloring. You look a little blondish. You look a little I don't know. But like I don't know. Like I can see you being maybe a summer or a spring, but also maybe a fall. I don't know. It's hard to tell in this in the lighting.
I have really terrible lighting right now. So I've got light brown hair that has streaks of blonde and red in it. So it's kind of like a little bit of everything. I am definitely an autumn, although I greatly prefer colors that are spring and summer. So I will usually dress myself in those colors, even though like the browns, the tans, the autumny oranges do look better with my skin tone and my, it brings out the brown in my eyes.
Okay, Sarah, are you ready for my reveal on what I am?
Yes.
According to this quiz on thelorylou.com, I am an autumn.
I don't know about that, sis.
I took the quiz. That's what it said. I have light brown hair with like golden undertones.
You don't have light brown hair.
Have you seen my hair? What do you
I'm looking at it right now.
Oh my God. I have green eyes. I have pale skin. The only question that I never know how to answer is when they ask what color your veins appear. Is it blue or green? And I'm like, why not both? Like they look like a mixture. I don't know how to answer this. So it's telling me I'm an autumn.
Just said that she had light brown hair. You're saying that you have the same tone of hair as Emily?
I mean, it's hard to tell in her lighting, but I think so.
Emily, am I going crazy?
I think Jess has slightly darker hair than me, but
much darker hair.
Sarah, do you want to help me take this quiz then? Because maybe I just don't know myself.
You're a winter.
Okay, Sarah, what color of jewelry should I wear? Gold or silver?
Probably
I put silver. Okay, I put silver. What color are my eyes? I think they fall under the bright blue, green, hazel, or light brown. Mine are green.
Okay.
Okay, lipsticks. I mean, there's like a light pink, which is a no for me.
But you wear like red lipstick always looked really good with you.
Yeah, that's the one I picked was the red one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now what color are my veins? That's the one I don't understand. Am I supposed to say blue or green?
I don't know what color your veins are.
I picked green. They're kind of green, but they look,
but you don't have a warm undertone to you. You have a cool undertone.
I don't know what to tell you. This is what the quiz said.
Okay.
So, I mean, I could try.
You're not an autumn, sis. You don't have any warm undertones.
So, okay, let me ask you about what my hair color should be then. Here are the options.
Yeah.
Light ashy blonde to medium ashy brown. No.
Mm-hmm.
Medium brown to black with blue undertones.
Okay.
Medium brown to black with golden undertones.
Okay.
Medium to deep red or auburn. Light blonde to medium brown or strawberry blonde.
I would say, I mean, I don't know what your undertones are. Do you have?
They're like blonde.
Okay, so then medium brown with gold undertones.
That's the one I picked. Mm-hmm. And then is your hair much darker than your skin tone?
Yes.
Yes, much darker because I'm very pale and I have darker hair.
Yeah.
And if I'm buying a new dress and only these colors are on sale, which would look best on you? There's a navy blue, there's like a lilac-y purple, there's a baby blue, and there's like a true red, like just a normal
I would say red.
That's the one I picked.
Yeah.
Autumn. It's still saying autumn.
No, it's wrong.
Oh my God. Anyway.
It's wrong.
You two can take this quiz if you want.
But don't.
But don't, because Sarah will disagree with it.
I think that I am probably a spring is my guess.
Okay. So what colors does that mean you should wear?
I don't know.
Your spring. Okay.
I'm not going to listen because I literally wear black more than half of the time.
So true though.
I'm not going to listen to
I do prefer more autumn colors though. Like I do prefer like jewel tones, like that sort of a deep, rich color.
That's winter.
Well, what is autumn?
Did you not listen to my whole thing where I said autumn colors are like more so like you got your mustard.
I'm wearing mustard.
I know, but I don't necessarily think that's like the nicest color.
Probably not, but I like it.
You would look really good with like emeralds and like deep blues and like burgundies.
Well, there you go then. Listen to Sarah. She knows what she's talking about.
I'm sorry, Emily. I'm mean. I'm sorry. I need to be better.
I think what we're learning is that Jess can wear at any color and look great.
Yeah, I can wear whatever I want. But I love Javier, and I love how much Javier loves and appreciates Felicity. I just think it's so sweet.
Do you think that you have the same skin tones as Javier and Felicity? Do you look at them and say, "Ooh, me too"?
I feel like Javier and Felicity don't even have the same skin tones.
No, they look totally different.
So I don't understand how any of this works.
Javier is not an autumn. I can see Felicity being an autumn. I do not see Javier being an autumn.
Yeah, because Javier has like olivey undertones, right?
That is autumn.
Okay, so then Felicity's not an autumn, I think.
No, I think Felicity is an autumn.
I can't talk about this anymore.
There's like true autumn, light autumn. There's like subdivisions as well.
I think it's so hard because we never see Javier outside of what we always see him wearing. It's always the same thing.
True,
He's always
the white button down. Yeah, that's very true.
And the summer.
And as problematic as Javier is with Ben at times, I do love their like joking back and forth. I think it's very cute and very sweet. Like Javier feels like a boss that definitely crosses the line a lot of the time, but it's very evident that he cares about his employees. So like if we're trying to look past the more problematic stuff, then we could give him that credit there.
Yeah, I'll just never forget that he asked Felicity to marry him and she said yes.
He did. This is terrible. But the thing is if we had to focus on every bad thing that a character has ever done, like we'd hate all these characters.
Yeah.
They've all done terrible things.
Seinfeld.
Except maybe Julie. I don't think Julie's done anything that bad, despite the fact that DBK absolutely despises her. Okay. Anything else from this episode that we missed that we need to touch on before we get into some feedback?
Do we want to talk Ruby at all?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Ruby was interviewed. And I find this fascinating, Emily, the Ruby storyline of like, people don't understand like why I'm doing what I'm doing, but I'm doing it and I'm going to make it work. And she talks about going to Colorado and telling her parents. So this is like, I'm a little surprised we're still getting so much screen time from Ruby, because I really thought that once her and Noel were done, it was going to be like, set sail, Ruby, goodbye, never see you again, sort of thing.
I've got a prediction. I predict she goes to Colorado and doesn't come back. I think she's going to have this chat with her parents. She can't hide her pregnancy at this point. She's far enough along that it really shows. And I just have this prediction that she's going to stay there. And that's going to be all she wrote for Ruby.
I think that makes sense. Sarah, what do you think?
I think I just took this quiz and I got autumn too, which I think just means that this quiz.
It's always autumn.
The Lori
Everybody's an autumn.
It's just autumn. Because there's no way that I'm an autumn. That is like the last one I would choose.
I think I also just want to be in autumn because I'm just so desperate for summer to be over and to get into autumn. Will sent me a TikTok this morning that was it was just this guy and he was like, I'm a fall bitch. Like, I love 60 to 70 degree weather. And he goes, the air is just so crisp. And he like just goes on and on and on about autumn. And I'm like, please bring it. I'm so desperate to be out of summer. It's hot. I'm over it. So maybe that's why everyone's in autumn.
Maybe. Ruby is, I thought that, number one, the fact that she majors in art history, I thought that was interesting.
Hey.
I minored in art history. And I think that it was like really like sincere and like what she said, you know, like I want to be this and this, but first I'm going to be a mom. And that's like really big. I think that she needs to see her parents soon and open up to them. She needs a good support system is what I think about Ruby.
Yeah, and I do think that's the right choice for her, right? Like if she goes back to Colorado and her family is very supportive, I think she needs a support system. Like if she wants to, and I'm not saying she can't, like of course, like if she wants to go to school and like has career aspirations and all of these things, she's gonna need help. Like it takes a village to raise a kid generally, especially when you're as young as Ruby is and in college and like, you know, like there's a lot going on. So I hope the best for Ruby. I really like what they've given her in terms of like even the last episode talking about like the whole point is that it's pro-choice. Like you have the choice, not saying everyone should have an abortion or everyone should have a baby, but it is your choice to do what you want with your body and your future. And I like that Ruby's like, no, this is I've decided to do this and I'm going to make it work for myself. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with Ruby, but I like Emily's prediction. It feels like it makes sense to me. Like she's like a one and done season character.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's set up next week. Season 2, episode 18. The episode title is Party Lines.
Party lines.
Party lines.
Oh,
It's either okay. So we're either something with politics going
That's
along
where-
party lines,
that's where my head is going to.
or someone is snorting cocaine at a party. Party lines.
No, we're not doing. I took another quiz and it said I'm spring. So
Oh, good God. A different website?
yeah.
Okay. What is the website for this one? Just so people can take it if they want.
I don't know.
Accurate information.
wikihow.com/color-season-quiz.
Okay, great. So yeah, party lines. That's next episode. But first, let's discuss who are we giving our point to this episode. Emily, do you have anybody you would like to stump for this episode?
Oh, so this is a tough one. I think I'm leaning toward Javier because he goes on a positive body image journey throughout the episode. We love to see it. He starts off feeling very insecure about himself, about how much weight the camera will add, but then he agrees to do the interviews. Then he somehow gets to watch himself back and he thinks he looks great. He's decided against the lipo and his English is also great. So I just love this journey for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true. That's a great point. Like he really is like, I am not bad looking. I am good looking. I speak English very well. Oh, by the way, I wanted to course correct or like, I was incorrect last week. I had said that the actor that plays Javier is not of Hispanic descent. That is not true. Our good friend Todd corrected me, which I really appreciate because I am reformed and I do not spoil myself anymore. So I would never, ever, ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Todd said he is half Puerto Rican, half Ashkenazi Jew of Russian descent.
Big same. So without the Puerto Rican. So I just wanted to correct myself because I was very, very wrong. So I apologize for that. But yes, I did want to say that I really did like Javier's evolution throughout the episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for me, I think I was kind of leaning towards Sean because I was like, hey, he made a documentary that I didn't think sucked this year, which is great. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's funny because I had Javier as like one of my obvious picks of like, he made me laugh. Like he went on a journey. He's like going towards self-acceptance, which we love. The other person I wanted to give like a little shout out to though is Tracy. Like, I think he had not, small, but mighty scenes this episode. And I just felt like it said a lot about him as a character. And the fact that like, again, Donald Faison is just like so good, like that it takes one scene to be like, okay, I understand this character a lot more now. I just wanted to shout him out. But I think I agree with Emily that like, I just really appreciate, I feel like we've been on this journey with Javier for a while now where he's like asked every single episode, like, do I look fat? Like, should I lose weight? And I just love that he got to the point where he saw himself on camera and was like, you know what? I am good looking and I speak English so well. And like, I love that for him. Like, I just think we all should strive to be more like Javier in that specific way, not in proposing to our employees, but specifically in this journey that he's on. So Sarah, do you agree? Are you okay with us giving the point to Javier?
Oh yeah, I will never, ever, ever disagree with a point towards Javier.
Yes. All right, let's get into our feedback that we have. We got an email from Jamie. And she agrees. Once again, Javier was the MVP of the episode for me with his colorful commentary. I understand that not everything Javier does or says has aged well, but Ian Gomez's delivery is always so spot on. I can't help but laugh, even when I know I maybe shouldn't. I really enjoyed this episode as I did last year's documentary episode. It's a little lighter episode, especially after last week's, but it's great getting a little more into the heads of the characters. It was also interesting to see Ben pull a Felicity and read Greg's private files in the admissions office. Personally, I was not that surprised by that, as Ben never really seemed to be that put off by Felicity's crazy behavior in early season 1, with the exception of her rewriting his paper. Was it surprising for you to see him use her tactics? And do you think Felicity is oblivious to Ben's feelings for her? Oh, this is a great question. Sarah, what do you think?
I do think so, especially because there was a line where Felicity said, I only did that because I was crazy and I was in love with you. And then the camera kind of like lingers there for a second. And then it's kind of like a realization like, oh, wow, like Ben loves her. Like, I don't know if like Ben has ever felt like true love for somebody, but like, I think that he does love Felicity and loves who Felicity is. So I really, really just like don't think that Felicity sees it. And I think it's because with Ben, she has always been in this like position where she sees like Ben on a pedestal and like higher than her. And she just like doesn't see it possible that he will come down to her level and like her like that. Especially because like he broke up with her last time. He was the popular guy. Like she came to him for to NYU to follow. Like I just don't think that she sees herself like quite on the same level as Ben.
Yeah, Emily, I totally agree. I think with Felicity, I think because he was the popular guy in high school and she was like the loner nerd sort of girl, I think that's how she just views their dynamic forever. And so she'll never necessarily think that like he has feelings for me, even if I don't think she ever would believe it unless he directly said to her, I have feelings for you.
Yeah. So I watched the episode twice. The first time that I watched this scene, she says, I only did that because I was in love with you. And then there's a long pause, that hesitation, and you kind of see this expression on Ben's face. And you as the audience realize, oh yeah, he's in love with her. And because I felt that way, I thought, oh, Felicity sees that and feels that. But the second time I watched, I felt like she just looked confused. And that now that we know that he is in love with her, I don't think she sees it. So it also was reminiscent to me of in The Office, where Jim and Pam are on the booze cruise.
Oh my
and
gosh,
there's that 17-second silence where they're just looking at each other, and Pam's having the realization, oh, this guy is in love with me. And to me, this was kind of reminiscent of that, although, this wasn't 17 seconds of silence. This was like maybe 4 or 5 at the most. So I think we as the audience are let in this moment, but I don't think Felicity is there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't think I think it needs to be more obvious. Like, I think that she's not the type who's like, oh, everyone's in love with me. Like I don't think she has that high of self-esteem where she would think that, especially about Ben, especially after what they went through. So I'm interested to see where it goes from here, especially because Ben has always felt to me like someone who isn't necessarily ready for a relationship, like a monogamous relationship. Feels like he gets like easily bored, easily distracted, ready to move on, doesn't want to settle down too quickly. But I feel like he's pined after Felicity for longer than I would have expected him to at this point. And that maybe he is ready. Like maybe if she was like, okay, let's do this thing, maybe it would be a great relationship. I don't know. I love this feedback we got from our friend Todd, fellow librarian, who said, how in the world can Greg get an extra paid position, but extra free volunteer positions are beyond his reach? It makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, truly.
It's really true.
The only thing is that like when you are like a nonprofit, you have to, and you have volunteers, you have to report that to the government, the IRS, when you're doing taxes. And I wonder if there's some sort of rule against like how many people you can file who are unpaid interns. But I don't know. It just sounds like a lot of tax benefits to me. And I'm no CPA, so I really don't understand why they wouldn't have the hours or the capacity to hire an unpaid person.
And this is also, the health center is under the umbrella of the university, where the university is more than just like the academic school. It's also this health center. Who knows what else they have going on. And I think it'd be fairly simple in that kind of circumstance to say, oh, well, volunteers are in exchange for credits, or, different ways of having to classify student workers that is not necessarily work study. So, agree with Todd. Thank you for that wonderful feedback, Todd.
We also got a comment from Lindy who says, Tony Pavone talks like she's 100% right about everything, and Felicity is an idiot for not seeing it her way. Felicity's trying to do the right thing, and Tony doesn't seem to consider that you shouldn't be in a relationship with your boss. Which, 1,000%. I think there, two things can be true. Yes, we should make space to hire, have diversity hires where you're not necessarily always picking the white guy. But also, you shouldn't be hiring someone because you have a crush on them. So the fact that Tony is chastising Felicity drove me up a wall in this episode, because I'm like, Felicity is right. Stop it. Of course, we also have some voicemails. So let's hear what Temmie has to say about this episode.
Hi, ladies. Long-time listener, love the podcast. It's me, Temmie. So here is the Dawson's Creek analogy. Season 3, episode 13. Before Pacey stars in Andy's play that she's directing, Pacey is playing basketball to let off some steam, and Dawson finds him. And it's like a situation just like Ben and Noel have been playing basketball too recently in these episodes. Pacey mentions AJ, the college guy, just like Ben mentions Greg. And both Pacey and Ben are more concerned about Joey Felicity than Dawson and Noel are concerned. So Dawson says that Joey's a big girl who can take care of herself. Noel says that Felicity's an adult and that they should stay out of this. Ben threatens Greg, and later, a few episodes later, Pacey beats up Matt Caulfield to protect Joey's honor when Matt Caulfield ruins her mural. So both Ben and Pacey are now ready to beat up, kill anyone for Felicity Joey. So, in summary, Noel and Dawson are the cool outsiders, nonchalantly watching it all happen. It's rare that 3 people are in the mix for one significant other. Remember, it's not a triangle or a square. It's 3 separate points with lines drawn to one point, as they are not also pursuing each other, as we hope, or as we probably guess. So, which season of The Real World was your favorite? I like Chicago. I believe it was the season when 9/11 happened. They should bring back TRL, as if videos still matter. And Emily, have you ever gone to the Library of Congress? I'm a big Thomas Jefferson fan. They have his collection there. I went in March. Thanks. Bye.
Okay.
Emily, have you ever been?
So I'm a terrible librarian. I have never been there. I have interacted with librarians from the Library of Congress. I've emailed with them, consulted with them, but I've never been there, which is awful because I've been to DC many times. But usually when I go to DC, I have, something that I'm going for. And it's not just like a fun trip where I can do what I want. But my sister has been there. She has sent me pictures. It is super beautiful inside. So if you do ever have time to spare in DC, it should definitely be high up on your list to visit.
Incredible. Sarah, do you have a favorite season of The Real World?
Absolutely, I do. The first season that I ever watched in real time was Real World New Orleans, and I loved that season. It was so good. I think it was the season where they had like a robot dog, and Road Rules had to do this mission where they had to steal the housemate's like robot dog, and just chaos ensued. And in my opinion, that's what started the Road Rules Real World Challenge. And the fact that like those two shows like competed against each other and were ops, which of course the challenge itself has been around for many a years. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, justice for that robot dog.
Yeah. I think I remember loving The Real World Austin, which is the one where Wes started. If you're a big challenge fan, you'll remember Wes and Johanna and Nehemiah. Like that was like a big season. But yeah, I remember liking that one. But I like Temmie's pointing out like the parallels to Dawson's Creek. I think this is very interesting. So if we see Pacey as the Ben, does that mean that Felicity ends up with Ben at the end?
Yeah. I mean, that would track for me.
And I think
but I hate it as a team Noller for life. I think that's bullshit, and obviously the wrong decision for Felicity. Absolutely terrible and absolutely horrible.
Emily, whose side are you on? Are you team Nen, team Ben, or team Noel? I just said Nen, like just combine them together. Team Ben or team Noel?
So on principle, I have to be team Noel because Felicity stalked Ben to college. And if she ends up with Ben, then what is the moral of this TV show? We cannot have her end up with the person that she stalked. So what I am kind of predicting the trajectory will be is that Ben is now, as of this episode, and has been for, confirmed in this episode, in my mind, is in love with Felicity. I do think they will get together. I don't know if it will be this season or maybe that will be a next season thing. And I think they will actually have a relationship beyond a sexless summer vacation together. And then after that, something happens. And I do think Noel is endgame.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I think, Sarah, you and I had predicted that Noel would be endgame, if I remember. But obviously, legally, I am Team Ben. Just have to say it, for the records.
Yes.
Okay, let's hear what DBK has to say about this episode.
What up, though, ladies? Emily, how's it going? Okay, Docuventary II. The few things that I will hit on that I'm confused about or need clarity on. Does Tracy know about the Dr. Elena badge, or are you taking him at like face value in this episode? Because I always I read it as like he knows about the badge and is like trying to get Elena to embarrass herself, I guess. Next, we learned, one of the things we learned in this episode, Megan lost the bet. The ruby sacrificing of Isaac. I looked up this point painting. I'm not sure I would say it's like beautiful per se. Maybe I'm like missing the deeper meaning of why they like use this specific painting. If I don't know, take a look at it if you haven't seen it. What else? Oh, Richard, I love all throughout this episode. He's like super funny. The slippery whenever I see that sign, I do that Richard pose as well. Yeah, what else happens this episode? I think that's it for this week, guys. Like lots of stuff gets progressed story-wise, like Felicity story-wise. We get the good Ben playing the Uno reverse card on Felicity. When they like finally sit down, we learn Greg's a drug addict, all that fun stuff. And Javier. We get Javier's like read on a bunch of characters. We learned that he's Team Noel, I'm gonna say. And then also we learned that he wouldn't like Julie. So how can you blame me for not liking Julie when your favorite character doesn't even like Julie? Because he says she has an ass like a muffin, but I still wouldn't like her. So I mean, we're out on that. And also, I'm sure it's no big deal that McGrath's name was mentioned this episode. Don't worry about a thing, Jess. Until next week, ladies. Peace.
Now I'm worried.
Wait, what was mentioned?
Professor McGrath. Is that not the teacher that Elena?
They did talk about that.
No.
He's back.
And Tracy has the number on him.
Yeah, he's like, I hate that guy.
Yeah, he's the Prince of Darkness.
That's so interesting.
Oh, no. We totally neglected to mention Megan and her contributions to this episode. I loved her saying to like Sean and Richard, okay, this is how much I want. And then they're like, okay, fine, 60. And she's like, okay, 90.
Yeah. For access
never enough.
To a dorm tour. And we find out how Megan became an RA. She lost a bet. I wonder what the bet was. I would love to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I don't want to see McGrath. No. Oh, no.
I mean, it's obviously like they wind up having a class and then Elena has to open up to Tracy about the affair. Like,
I hope so. I hope it's not
obviously
rekindled or
be.
something.
No, I don't think it's going to be rekindling. I just really think that's going to be like, for full intimacy purposes. I mean, it is something that like Tracy's going to like probably need to know if they're really going to become like a good couple. Like you have to like open up about that stuff.
And then is this going to reopen up how he definitely changed her grade after they had sex, right?
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
Oh, yikes. I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that.
No. Okay. Well, there's that to look forward to. But next week, hopefully, we either talk politics or we talk cocaine at parties, party lines next week, season 2, episode 18. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much for coming on, Emily, and chatting with us. Hopefully we'll see you for next season as well. Anything else you want to mention? Anywhere people can find you or what else you have going on?
I am in the post-show recaps Discord, so you can find me there. I will be on a Whirlwind podcast in the next couple of weeks. So if you're subscribed there, you'll be able to hear me guest over there. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say which show, so but you can, watch out for me there.
Awesome. Sarah and I, of course, are still covering Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We are almost done with season 2, so check out that coverage because it has been a wild ride over there on Buffy. Sarah, what else you got going on? Anything else you want to plug before we wrap things up today?
Nopers.
Okay. You can find us at Shit90spod. Send us in a voicemail. Send us in an email. We greatly appreciate it. And until next time, everyone, have a good one. Bye.
Just ask. Shit 90 shows taught me.
Shit 90 Shows Taught Me was not filmed before a live studio audience.